Breaking overnight, China launching a retaliatory tariff of 125% against the United States starting Saturday, April 12th. It's in response to President Trump's 145% tariff on China.
Breaking news. The U.S. farm industry is crashing, and the world is on the brink of a food emergency. As China slaps a crippling 125% tariff on U.S. soybeans, farmers are left with silos overflowing and crops rotting in the fields. The once thriving agricultural giant is now scrambling to survive. Will it recover, or is this the beginning of the end for American farming?
We continue to monitor the fallout from President Trump's reversal and his pause of tariffs on dozens of countries, except, of course, China.
The U.S. farm industry is facing a crisis, and the heart of the problem lies in the escalating trade tensions between the U.S. and China. It all started with tariffs, and now it's spiraling out of control, affecting farmers who are already struggling to keep up. To understand the depth of this crisis, we need to look at the core issue, the tariffs, specifically the 125% tariff that China slapped on U.S. soybeans. Once upon a time, soybeans were one of the crown jewels of U.S. agricultural exports, with China being the biggest buyer. But now, China has completely pulled out of the market, and it's been a major blow to farmers who relied heavily on that trade. When China raised the tariff to 125%, the prices for U.S. soybeans started plummeting, and it's been a downhill ride ever since. Farmers in the U.S. are finding themselves with silos overflowing with unsold crops, and it's a tough pill to swallow. These aren't just a few lost sales here and there. This is a massive disruption. It's not like you can suddenly turn around and sell your crops to someone else when you've already planned your harvest for the year. The loss of China as a customer means that these soybeans, which once had a guaranteed market, are now sitting idle, waiting for a buyer that may never come.
Bill. One Wisconsin farmer is already feeling the tariffs on her soybean farm. She's worried about the lasting effects this will have on all soybean farmers here in Wisconsin.
Farmers who have been planting their crops for years are now left with hard choices. You can't just switch from growing soybeans to another crop overnight. It takes years of planning, investing in seeds, and anticipating the market. But that's exactly what many farmers are trying to do in response to this mess. For example, soybean acreage is expected to drop by more than 12%. That's a huge shift, and it's not an easy decision for anyone involved. Soybeans are a staple crop, and for many farmers, they've been the go-to for decades. But now, they have to look elsewhere. A lot of farmers are switching to corn, hoping it'll be a safer bet. But even corn isn't looking like the golden ticket it once was. Corn prices have started to weaken, and with tariffs coming at them from multiple directions, China, Mexico, and Canada, the future is looking increasingly uncertain. Mexico, which has historically been a strong buyer of U.S. corn, is now threatening tariffs of its own. That means the U.S. is facing a much broader trade problem, not just a dispute with China. So even the shift to corn isn't providing the stability farmers were hoping for. It's not just about planting more corn, it's about hoping that there's still someone out there who wants to buy it at a price that makes sense for the farmers. The entire situation is a roller coaster for farmers who are watching their livelihood unravel. They can't just go back to the drawing board and rethink everything in one season. These decisions are years in the making, and now they're being forced to adjust on the fly with very few options available to them. The farmers I've spoken to say they feel trapped, stuck between a trade war that's spiraling out of control and a world market that's quickly moving away from them. And no matter how much they try to shift gears, the market conditions keep changing, making it harder to get ahead. The fallout from the tariffs and trade wars isn't just limited to soybeans. It's creating a ripple effect that's shaking up nearly every corner of U.S. agriculture. Crops that once thrived in the international market are now facing steep declines in exports, and farmers are feeling the pinch from all sides. Let's start with other grains and crops. Wheat, sorghum, and specifically crops like almonds and citrus are all taking a huge hit. Sorghum, once a success story for U.S. farmers, has seen its exports to China drop by an astonishing 95%. Think about that for a second. 95%. The market that once supported a large portion of U.S. sorghum production has vanished almost overnight. With China now turning to Brazil and Argentina for its sorghum needs, U.S. farmers are left with piles of unsold crops. It's a brutal situation when you've got crops growing in your fields, but no one is willing to buy them. The market for these grains has essentially dried up, leaving farmers with no buyers and no clear solution. And it doesn't just stop with sorghum. Other specialty crops like almonds and citrus, which were once exported in large quantities to international markets, are now facing the same fate. California's almond growers, for example, have lost the Chinese market altogether. This loss is devastating, especially when you consider that China was one of the biggest consumers of US almonds. It's not just about losing out on a few sales, it's about watching a reliable market vanish and having to scramble for alternatives that may never materialize.
Your standstill because of the trade war Round after round of tariffs mean China's $425 million in tilapia exports to the United States face duties of 170%.
The meat industry is also in serious trouble, and this is another area where the tariffs are hitting hard. U.S. pork exports, once in high demand, are now effectively banned in China due to the 170% tariffs. That's a staggering number, and it's enough to bring an entire sector to its knees. With no demand for U.S. pork from China, farmers are left wondering how to stay afloat. It's not just pork either. Beef exports are also facing new tariffs, not just from China, but from Canada and Europe as well. The reality is that the US meat market is facing serious challenges on multiple fronts, and it's unclear when or if things will turn around. Now, let's talk about dairy, a sector that often flies under the radar, but is also feeling the weight of these trade issues. US dairy exports, including products like whey, milk powder, and cheese, have been decimated. China's 125% tariff on U.S. dairy products has had a devastating effect on the industry. These tariffs have essentially crushed the dairy sector, with processors pulling back and farmers left with large quantities of unsold milk and dairy products. The loss of market access is forcing dairy farmers to adjust, but it's not something that can be fixed easily. They've been hit hard, and there's no immediate relief in sight. The broader impact of these issues is becoming clear. It's not just about losing individual markets, it's about the collapse of entire industries. For years, U.S. agriculture has relied on these export markets to stay viable, but now, with countries like China and Mexico turning to other suppliers, U.S. farmers are finding themselves sidelined in a global market that's quickly evolving without them. It's a tough reality to face when you spent your life building a business based on reliable international trade.
American Farm Bureau shows more and more family farms are foreclosing across the nation.
What's happening to U.S. farmers isn't just an economic crisis, it's a matter of survival. For many, it's about losing everything they've worked for. Farmers are facing a market that's slipping away, and with no clear solution in sight, the uncertainty is overwhelming. Some are filing lawsuits, but even legal actions can't solve the deeper issues. Bankruptcy is a real threat, with loan defaults rising, and rural communities are feeling the emotional toll, with higher rates of anxiety and depression. The fear of losing their land is immense. For many, it's more than just property. It's their legacy, passed down through generations. As multi-generational farms close down, the loss is heartbreaking. The once thriving social fabric of rural life is unraveling, with fewer farm festivals and more foreclosure signs. It's not just about unsold crops anymore. It's about families struggling to hold on to a way of life that's been torn apart. The trade war isn't just hurting U.S. farmers, it's having ripple effects across the entire global market. China's decision to pull back from buying U.S. agricultural products has led to a major shift in global trade dynamics. With tariffs now at an eye-popping 125%, China has locked itself into long-term contracts with other countries, particularly Brazil and Argentina. These countries are stepping up, taking the market share that the U.S. once held so tightly. And as China makes these shifts, the US is slowly losing its trusted partner as a leader in global agriculture. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.